Well, hello, Beverly. This is George, a local resident, and I'm happy to be here. And I will say a few things about what I do in Beverly. I'm a local handyman and contractor, and I know how to fix just about everything that needs to be done on a home. I'll be doing some lessons and warnings later on with some props maybe. But right now, I just want to tell you a story about something that happened to me when I was 18 out in the West, in Sandpoint, Idaho specifically. Look it up. It's a pretty cool town. At the time that I was there, I spent a week there, and it wasn't all that great. So as the story goes, before I was 18, I was not able to get a driver's license because you have to have a guardian to do that, and I couldn't get anyone to sign for me, so I just kind of had to drive around illegally while I was leaving Montana and moving to Spokane, Washington. And to do that, you have to go through Sandpoint on Route US 2. So I'm going along. I have a 1965 Mustang with a 400 plus horsepower engine in it. Everything an 18-year-old needs. It was kind of a wreck, kind of a bomb, but it had a lot of power and it went really fast. So that was nice. However, because I didn't have a driver's license and I did not have an ability to register the car, I just put some California plates on it that I stole from a junkyard. And this is not an uncommon practice out west in the early 1970s. So anyhow, Troy, Montana, where I grew up and went to high school, look that one up. It's a really awesome little town right in the middle of the Rocky Mountains, but it's only 1,800 feet above sea level, which makes it kind of a temperate zone. And it's worth looking up on Google Maps. But anyhow, I get myself all loaded up, and the reason I'm going to Spokane, and this is a little backstory, is that I'm going to try to go to continuation high school. Now, I only managed to get through junior year in high school because I basically living on my own, out and about. So a woman that I knew, who was kind of my Maggie May, she offered to let me be a live-in babysitter and go to continuation school in Spokane. They had a nice program for it. But I had to get there at a certain time or they just give it to the next guy that is signed up. So I left Troy, Montana to go to Spokane, and I'm going along and everything is going good. I figure I can get there in a couple of hours and I'd be fine and I could just park the illegal car and figure out things from there. I knew I would turn 18 in a couple of months or so I'd be all set with a Washington state license. Well, anyhow, before I got into the Sandpoint, Idaho town, I had a right front blowout tire. So the car kind of skidded, went off the road right in front of the sign that says, "Welcome to Sandpoint, Idaho." Now, I didn't hit it, which was good, and I was trying to get the tire changed and get out of there, but some do-gooder decided to call the police that there was a wreck, and pretty soon the cops show up. Now, I'm a skinny 18-year-old, long hair, and I didn't have any shoes on at the time. So the cops proceed to write me up for illegal registration, driving without a driver's license, driving without shoes, and just generally being a young hippie in 1971. And in Sandpoint, Idaho, that sort of thing just didn't go over. So they haul me in, they process me, which is, in those days, it was kind of like, take your shoelaces out and don't do anything weird. So I get in there, I go before the judge, they fine me $70. I had $35 on me. $35 went a long ways in 1971, so that was quite a bit of money for an 18-year-old. I needed another $35, but they would not take my out-of-state check, which was from a bank in Libby, Montana, another town to look up, and because it was an out-of-state check. Now, Sandpoint to Libby is like towns out west are all tens and hundreds of miles apart sometimes, and they all do business with each other. It just takes a phone call. But they wouldn't do it. So anyhow, to make up for my $35 shortage, I got to spend 7 days in jail at $5 a day to make up the 35 bucks. So that would be pretty outrageous now, but what are you going to do? You know, you can't argue with them. They're the cops. So anyhow, they throw me in jail. I'm almost 18, so they decided they would do it anyways. There is no ACLU, no citizens' rights stuff that mattered in those days. So anyhow, I get processed and I get thrown in jail for a week. I have on the same clothes for the whole week, pair of jeans and a jean shirt. And I get in there, and the jail cell is a city jail. It's an old gymnasium. They've taken out the basketball stuff and the bleachers, and they put this one steel cell block right in the middle of the gymnasium. And it is all totally made out of steel and has 6 bunks in it, so you just take your pick. All of the big windows had been welded over with steel plate. There were 2 other guys in there. They were both young, about 21 years old. And those 2 guys were doing a year apiece for getting caught smoking a joint on a park bench in Sandpoint, Idaho. They were going to do a year apiece. So anyhow, we all got along okay. They gave me a hard time because I was just a kid and they were bored, so they made up a bunch of stories that, you know, just weren't true. And so I start with all of that, and I'm going to be in there a week. And I'll tell you now about the menu for this town of Sandpoint, Idaho, for the prisoners. In the morning, you got a box. You remember the little boxes of cereal that you split open the side and poured the milk into them? Well, you got a box of that and a bowl of powdered milk and 2 pretty much cold pieces of white toast. So that was breakfast. If you wanted coffee, they had Sanka, which was pretty awful stuff. It's, you know, basically powder, finest powder I've ever seen. And you had to use the lukewarm tap water out of the sink. So that was it. So that's breakfast for the whole, you know, every day. That's all you're going to get. Oh, they did have a couple of slices of peaches in there too. So that was it. Now, there was no lunch. And so, I mean, you're just hanging around all day. It's not like you're exerting energy. And so for dinner, you got a banquet frozen TV dinner that they heated up. And the price tag was still on the box, and they were, in those days, they were 17 cents for TV dinner. So you got one of those about 6 o'clock in the evening. And the 2 guys in there, they said on holidays they would give you 2 of them. So that was a big treat, I suppose. So that was your whole menu for the whole week. We ended up, you know, we played cards. You could smoke cigarettes in those days. We had a Frisbee in there that we could throw around on top of the cell block. And but that was pretty much how you would spend every day. Now in the evening, we had the ability to watch a small television that was in the stolen property cell next door to us. And at night, we had a pretty good deputy that was on all night, and he would turn it on for us, but he wouldn't put it into our cell block. I guess they thought if we had the power cord in there, somebody would get strangled. But we could watch it if one guy laid on the floor and looked around through the bars at the TV. The other guy could kneel over him and put his head above the other guy's head, and he could see the TV. And then the third guy, me, I was the tallest guy in there, I could just stand over those 2 and turn and crane my neck around, and I could watch Johnny Carson. And so we had that treat every night. Now, the only other treat that you had was trying to look through the half-inch holes that were drilled through the steel plate, and you had to climb up and kind of monkey your way up to see the holes. And you could see a train going by, so that was a big thing. We'd all hear the train, and then we would draw cards to see who got to watch it go by. What else? Oh, through that same hole, one of the guys had convinced his girlfriend to tie a joint or whatever she could onto a string, and he could pull it back up. But she never got the courage to do that, so that never happened. And so my car, at this point, to backtrack a little bit, my car has been towed to a local gas station, and so I was going to have to deal with that after I got out. Now, back to the jail. Jail is really boring. There's nothing going on. You're just hanging around all the time. So finally, my 7 days is up. Now, picture me at 18. I'm like maybe 160 pounds. And I literally lost weight in there because I described the whole diet to you. I mean, this is for a young guy burning up a lot of energy just naturally. So when I got out of there, I weighed less than when I went in. And also, now I had to figure out how to get my car out of Hawk without having any money. But the first thing I did was panhandle on the streets of Sandpoint, Idaho. It was probably the first time anybody had panhandled on the streets of Idaho. Now, I had grown up in Boston, and I'd lived in Texas and Germany and Washington State, and I'd traveled quite a bit, so I wasn't afraid of dealing with the public. So I started panhandling, asking people for spare change. I got a lot of weird looks. People couldn't understand why anybody would be asking them for money. Remember, this is 1971. So I finally get 70 cents. And this is part of the whole thing being called my 35 story, because I've already gone through two 35s to make up the $70 tickets. And now I have 70 cents, which again is two 35s. And I go to a restaurant and I get a cheeseburger and a Coke, and honest to God, it was the best cheeseburger I've ever had in my life. It was fat, juicy, and a Coke to put it down. So I get that in my belly, and now I have to find the gas station, and somebody directs me to the gas station. I go in there, I tell them who I am, and the kid who was kind of in charge of it, he really liked my car. It had a powerful engine, it had a Hearst racing transmission, it was a 418 horse Ford 289, and it had a set of 35, no, wait a minute. It had a set of 411 ratio gears in the back end, which means it had a lot of torque. It was designed for drag racing. And just trying to drive the car, it would squeal every time you shifted gears. So now he wanted that rear end, and he was willing to give me $35 and switch out the rear end for one that he had in the shop that would put 308 ratio into my car, which is what a normal Mustang would have. So this solved my $35 towing fee and my $35 storage fee. So I get that resolved, I get in the car, and I take off. I still have to get out of town without getting caught. And they gave me another license plate off of Junker, so I looked okay on the road. And I get out of there, I'm sweating bullets for the last 60 miles to Spokane. And I get to Spokane, and I get to my friend's house, but I had missed my continuation high school deadline. Plus, she thought I was dead somewhere because I never showed up. And this is pre-cell phone, and the only call they let me make was to try to get the money out of the bank. So that was all done. So I get there, and I missed the school, so now I'm going to go get a driver's license finally and find a job. Now, in the process of doing that, I met a young guy, and he liked the sound of the engine, and so we decided to do a deal and swap it out. and he traded me a 1952 one-ton Ford farm truck that had very little miles on it, and we traded straight across, okay? I'm 18, he's 18, it's all legal, trade titles, all done. Well, 2 days later, the cops, the grandfather, and the kid show up at my door, and the grandfather had given the kid the truck as a graduation present. And he was claiming that I tricked him and stole the truck, basically, by playing that kid for being naive. So here we are with the cops and the paperwork, and they start grousing about it, and the cop looks at all of the paperwork. He sees nothing wrong with it. Plus, it turns out the grandfather lied to him and said that I had taken money also. And he said I had taken $350. So and that would just be impossible. You could buy a Cadillac out west for $350. So that was a lie, and he got caught in it, and the cop was pissed because he got lied to. And he just said, there's nothing wrong here. You own the truck, he owns the car. And that's basically the end of that story. Week in jail for $35. The truck that I got was a really nice truck, and I kept it for quite a while. And the kid took the engine and transmission and put it into a better car, so he was happy. And that's about it. That's one of the stories that I have from growing up out west and the way life goes on out there with everyone being scattered out and towns are far apart. You just have to drive sometimes to get anything done. So anyhow, one of the things I do in Beverly, this is a little self-promotion now. On Saturdays, I will set up all of my leathercraft work on this side of the street across from the Atomic Cafe. I've done it for the last few years now, and a lot of people come by and they buy nice belts and wallets from me, and I do some fun stuff for the kids, and the city issues a permit for this sort of thing for $100 a year. And in the process of doing this, I keep encouraging the art student crowd to start getting out on the street with their notepads and their easels, because Beverly is an art town. We have an art college, and I'd like to see more of these kids getting out there, especially since the school could easily afford a couple of permits, and the kids could be in a kind of umbrella situation where they're going to be legal to be out there trying to sell their work or just do some sketches. You could do the caricature thing and make a few bucks and improve your art. So come and see me when I'm set up and I'm selling leatherwork, and I will coach you on getting the permit, and you can actually, hang out with me and set up and do some sketches under my umbrella, and we'll see how this goes for Beverly. So that's it. We can sign off. I'll do another podcast sometime, and we'll tell you another story about other things, the same sort of thing, and then I'll be doing some demos on, for homeowners. I've also, like I said, I've fixed a lot of houses through the years, and I'll coach people on, painting, minor repairs, carpentry, nails, screws, all that stuff that I've discovered that most people don't know much about any of that, and they can spend a lot of money on gimmicks and gadgets, and they're just not needed. So I'll be doing some coaching on that. So that's it. Thanks for listening and putting up with it, and I hope you had a little bit of amusement, and I'll see you again sometime.